Japan is the slimmest industrialized country on the planet. Lowest obesity rate in the developed world. Not by a little, by a landslide. And the moment you hear that, your brain fills in the answer. Sushi, green tea, fish, small portions of pretty food. That answer is wrong. Comforting, but wrong. Because if it were just the food, every person who ate sushi twice a week in the West would be thin, and they're not. The real reason Japan stays this slim isn't on a plate. It's a set of rules. Written, cultural, and in one case, literally the law. Rules so demanding that most people in the West would quit by day 2. There are 7 of them. Some will click instantly, others will feel almost cruel, until you understand exactly why they work. And rule number 5? It's the one doctors quietly admire, the one no Western diet will ever put on its cover, because it has nothing to do with food at all. Let me walk you through all 7. By the end, you won't think of eating healthy the same way again. Before we start, tell me in the comments which you think matters more, what you eat, or how you live. Then keep watching, because Rule 1 already breaks the first half of that answer. Rule 1. Stop at 80%. On purpose. The first rule isn't a food. It's a moment, the moment you decide to stop. In Okinawa there's a phrase said quietly before meals. Hara Hachibu. Eat until you are 80% full. Not stuffed, not I couldn't fit dessert. 80%. The point where you're satisfied but could still, technically, eat more. And then you stop anyway. Here's why this is brutal and brilliant. Your stomach takes about 20 minutes to tell your brain it's full. So if you eat until you feel full, you've already overshot. You just don't know it yet. Hara Hachibu builds in the buffer. You stop before the signal arrives, and by the time it does, you land exactly right. The Blue Zone's research that studied the world's longest living people found Okinawans were eating hundreds of fewer calories a day, not through restriction, but through this one habit of stopping early. No counting, no app, just a decision made at the table. And it sets up Rule 2, because stopping is only half the battle. The other half is how much was in front of you to begin with. Rule 2. Shrink the plate, shrink the appetite. Look at a Japanese meal and you'll notice something before you notice the food. The dishes are small, many little bowls instead of one big plate. A rice bowl that fits in your palm. Portions that would look, to a Western eye, like an appetizer. This isn't decoration, it's psychology weaponized. Studies on eating behavior, famously Brian Wansink's work on portion size, showed that people eat more from bigger plates and bigger containers without noticing, and report feeling just as full from less when the dish is smaller. Your eyes negotiate fullness before your stomach ever gets a vote. Japan quietly rigged that negotiation. Small dishware, multiple courses, food arranged to look complete. You feel like you ate a full, beautiful meal, because you did, on a fraction of the volume. Rule 1 taught you to stop early. Rule 2 makes sure early was already less to begin with. And the next rule takes this out of your kitchen entirely, and into the government. Rule 3. The country that made your waistline the law. This is the rule that makes Westerners' jaws drop, so let it land. In 2008, Japan passed something the world nicknamed the Metabo Law. Under it, companies and local governments are required to measure the waistlines of adults between 40 and 74 during their annual checkups. Men over about 33.5 inches, women over about 35.4, flagged. Not fined personally, but the organizations responsible are pushed to provide guidance, counseling, and follow-up to bring those numbers down. Sit with that. An entire nation decided that widening waistlines were a public problem, not a private embarrassment, and built a system to catch them early. To a Western ear it sounds intrusive, maybe even cruel. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It works. When staying slim isn't just your willpower alone but something the whole environment nudges, the individual stops carrying the entire weight of the fight. Rule 2 shrank your plate quietly. Rule 3 shrank the whole country's tolerance for looking away, and it leads straight into a rule you were taught as a child, and probably forgot. Rule 4. Slow down. Eating is not a race. Watch how a traditional Japanese meal is eaten and you'll notice a rhythm we've lost. It's slow. Chopsticks force small bites. Conversation breaks up the pace. Tea is sipped between courses. A meal is an event with a beginning and an end, not fuel shoveled in over a keyboard. Speed is the silent saboteur of Western eating. We eat fast, So we blow past that 20-minute fullness signal before it can save us. The exact signal rule one relies on. Slow eating gives the signal time to arrive while you're still at the table, so you naturally want less. Japanese meal culture builds that slowness in by design. The tools, the courses, the ritual. You're not exercising discipline. The meal itself is doing it for you. And now we reach the one I promised, the rule that has nothing to do with food at all. If this is rearranging how you think about eating healthy, subscribe. Everything here is free and built to make calm, healthy living make sense. Now, Rule 5. The one doctors admire. Rule 5. They don't diet. They move all day. Here's the secret no Western diet book will sell you, because you can't bottle it. Japanese people are among the most walking populations on Earth, and almost none of it is called exercise. They don't drive to a gym to walk on a machine. They walk to the train, walk through the station, walk up the stairs, walk to the shop, to school, to work. Cities are built dense and walkable, and public transport means legs move as a default, all day, without a single workout on the calendar. Studies of daily step counts routinely put Japanese urban residents thousands of steps ahead of the average Westerner, quietly burning energy every hour the West spends sitting in a car and a chair. This is why doctors quietly admire it. There is no motivation to summon, no membership to cancel, no January resolution to break. Movement isn't an event you have to choose, it's stitched into ordinary life. Rule 4 slowed down how they eat. Rule 5 reveals that the calories are being handled long before and after the meal, on foot, without anyone thinking about it. Which raises the real question, where does all this discipline come from? That's Rule 6. Rule 6, they're trained as children. None of this appears by accident in adulthood. It's taught, deliberately, from the first years of school. Japan has a national program called Shokuiku, food education. Children learn where food comes from, how to eat balanced meals, and how to eat mindfully. School lunch, kyushoku, is a real government-guided meal, portioned, nutritious, often served by the students themselves, and eaten together. Kids are raised knowing what a proper portion looks like and what enough feels like. So by the time a Japanese person is an adult, none of the earlier rules feel like a diet. They feel like normal. The West tries to fix eating at 40 with a crash plan. Japan built the instinct at 6. That's why Rule 1, stopping at 80%, isn't willpower there. It's a reflex trained decades ago. And it leaves one final rule, the quietest and strictest of them all. Rule 7. Food is not comfort. It's respect. The last rule is a mindset the West almost completely lost. In Japan, food carries a quiet reverence. Before eating, people say itadakimasu, a word closer to I humbly receive than let's eat. Meals are treated as something to be grateful for and finished with respect, not as a coping mechanism for a bad day, boredom, or stress. Food isn't the reward for surviving your emotions, it's nourishment, and it's honored as such. That single shift changes everything. When food stops being your therapist, you stop eating for reasons that have nothing to do with hunger, the exact eating that quietly undoes everyone else. It's the strictest rule, because it's the hardest, not a portion or a plate, but your entire relationship with why you reach for food at all. So it was never the sushi. It was never the green tea. Japan stays the slimmest nation on earth because of 7 rules that surround a person from childhood to old age. Stop at 80%, shrink the plate, measure what matters, slow down, move all day, learn it young, and treat food with respect. Some of them felt strict. 1 or 2 felt almost cruel. But look closer and none of them are really about eating less. They're about building a life where eating well is simply the default, and staying slim is what happens on its own. Tell me in the comments, which rule could you actually live with, and which one would break you by day 2? And if someone you love has tried every diet and still struggles, send them this, because the answer was never on the plate. You don't need a stricter diet. You need a life where the healthy choice is the easy one. That's the real Japanese secret, and you can start borrowing it today.